I am ready. Where do you guys stand on the idea of a flat Earth?
I am 100% round spherical guy.
Good.
And
I am a conspiracy theorist who likes to consume information, but I don't necessarily believe anything.
Yeah. Right. Awesome. This will be a great conversation.
Perfect.
All right.
Okay, we're ready.
Okie dokie. All right. Hello, Rooster Bat fans, freaks and geeks, and those around the world. Is the Earth flat or not? You know, today we're going to have a conversation with David. Now, is it Weiss?
Weiss like ice.
Weiss like ice. And we're going to figure out whether or not the Earth is flat. Hey, David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, David. And Jess, looking forward to talking to some people that are interested in discussing the Earth.
Yeah. And as a skeptic of, the flat Earth movement, it's hard for me to kind of get around whether or not
you did there.
whether or not the Earth is flat or, is it a disc or,
Yeah. Let me clear up a couple things that most globe believers think about flat earthers. One, they think that we think that the Earth is a disk floating in space with a bunch of other ball planets or disk planets. That's not the case at all. No flat earther thinks that. If you Google flat Earth, you'll get a bunch of pictures like this from the Flat Earth Society. Nobody believes that. The Flat Earth Society is a controlled opposition site run by the government that has just disinformation on it. No flat earther believes that the Earth is rising at 9.8 meters per second. None of that. The other thing that most globe people don't really understand is what their model is, that they're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour. They're orbiting the sun at 66,000 miles an hour. They're chasing the sun at 500,000 miles an hour. And that entire system's moving sideways at 1.3 million miles per hour. And somehow, somehow all of the stars reset every year. Even though because of the spin, they say the Earth, the water at the equator bulges 14 miles high. I used to think that was the coolest thing until I realized, well, how come these lakes don't move at all? And if the water at the equator was 14 miles high, how are the Maldives or Africa not underwater? How come Central Africa is not underwater? If it's 14 miles high at the equator, it makes no sense whatsoever. So once you start analyzing, what the helio-nonsensical model really is, you'll start realizing how much nonsense it is.
14.
That's a lot of information to consume all at once.
Yeah, sorry about that, but it comes like a fire hose. I'll try to take it a little slower.
No, that's okay. You answered one of the questions that we had, like right off the bat, that you don't believe that it's a disc. So if it's not a disc,
what is
and
it?
It's not round.
My favorite.
Yeah.
So what is a puddle? A puddle is where water accumulates in the low spot in the land, right? Right? After rain, water accumulates. The edge of the puddle is where the land is just higher than the amount of water that there is, right? A pond is a bigger puddle. A lake is a bigger pond, right? The edge of a lake is not the edge of a disc. It's just the edge of the lake where the land is higher than the water surface. Large bodies of water at rest lay flat, testably, scientifically, provably flat. So the world is a giant pond. It has a bunch of islands that we call continents, and they're all surrounded by water. But all of the water is surrounded by the highest land on Earth. The highest land on Earth is Antarctica. You can look it up, right? So we live in the Antarctic basin, right? If you take a boat south to the edge of the world, you don't fall off. You get to Antarctica. You can climb up on the land or the ice, and that's it. It goes for thousands of miles, and it's off limits to everybody since 1959.
Now, Antarctica is off limits to everybody?
Yeah, so in 1959, or in the early 50s, Admiral Byrd flew out over Antarctica and said, "There's beyond the poles, there's land bigger than the United States, and no human has ever stepped foot on, filled with resources." And then somehow, with all of that going on and all the wars in the world for resources, all of the countries in the world signed on and said, "We must protect the penguins and the ice." The penguins can't even hear an airplane fly over. Okay, Therefore, no one's allowed to ever go over or around or near Antarctica. And this pink line represents 60 degrees south. No one is allowed to take fuel beyond that line. Okay. And that's still like 1,000 miles from Antarctica. And then no one's allowed to independently explore there. You can go take a vacation there for like 3 or 4 days. They'll take you to this little peninsula. They'll show you some penguins. They'll show you some ice. They'll show you a ceremonial South Pole out here. But there's no compasses don't work and GPS doesn't work. So you can't even verify where the heck you are. And then they kick you out. Nobody's allowed to explore out here until the year 2041.
Oh, so we're not even to the point where we're allowed to question
and
it. Like,
before we get there,
physically.
If we haven't figured it out, they'll kick the can down the road another 60 years.
So are we a small part of a bigger round Earth than we thought it was?
So that's good question. Because that's where I went first. But we've done if the Earth is a ball, the 24,901 miles around, there's a curvature formula, and if we use their curvature formula, we can see too far. There's things that we can see, especially with today's new consumer optics and infrared technology. We can see things way farther. Like, for example, this oil rig is 9.4 miles away. The camera's a foot off the water. Well, at a foot off the water, the horizon should be 1.2 miles away, right? And at this distance, there should be 59 feet of curvature. Not only can we see here, we can see the water for tens of miles beyond it, where there should be hundreds of feet of curvature, right? And there's greater distances. Go ahead. Sorry.
In my daytime job, I'm a photographer, and I could explain that with depth of field. How is that not explainable by depth of field?
We can see too far. We shouldn't be able to see this water at all. It should be behind a mountain of water. It should be like, for example, if I walked around this hallway, could you zoom in there with any lens or anything to see me? No, you couldn't, because I'd be behind this wall, right?
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I flip it over, this is my physical horizon, and no amount of zoom can bring it back in, but we can see things that should be hundreds of feet below the curvature. Right. We've spoken with Navy ships and marine and submarine people that say on a Navy ship, they can see another boat over 100 miles away and hit it with a pencil thin laser beam and light it up at 100 miles away. There should be 6,600 feet of a hump of water in between them. And the same thing with a submarine down near the bottom can see another submarine with its sonar over 100 miles away. There should be a mountain over a mile high in between them. But somehow the sonar goes over that mountain. It's not depth of field. It's because the Earth is a flat, level plane.
Interesting.
It is interesting.
Yeah. So how do we explain like moon phases, for instance?
Yeah.
So how do we figure out we have a 30-day calendar basically on the moon, whether it goes into crescent, waning, and whatever, right? How do we? Okay, there we go.
So the sun goes around once every 24 hours. Right now, the sun's normally this is a 24-hour clock. The sky is a perfect clock, but the sun is an hour off because we're in daylight savings time. But if I speed it up, the sun goes around once a day, and it laps the moon around every 28, 29 days. So as it's moving around, its position to the moon affects the phases. And as you see, so the position of the moon and its phase keeps track of the weeks and the months. There used to be 13 months of 29 days, but they changed it to 12 months of varied days just to throw off our calendar. And when the sun catches all the way up to the moon, it becomes a new moon, and you don't see it for
very similar to what it already is, except straight above us rather than around us going around it.
Okay, then explain a lunar
eclipse.
Yep.
Yeah. So
because that's when the Earth, right? Theoretically, that's when the Earth is being blocked by the sun.
That's what they tell us.
The moon. Yeah, the sun is blocking. The sun is being blocked by the Earth from the moon, which is causing the lunar eclipse, correct?
That's what they tell us. But let me show you how that's not the case. So,
okay.
So here we have, I'm showing you. So when you're watching an eclipse, you're waiting for the Earth to get in between. So it's called a Saturnian, if I can pronounce that correctly, eclipse. There's been over 50 documented ones where the observer can see the sun and the moon both above their horizon. And the eclipse starts before one of them goes down below the horizon, which would have to be the case. And if the sun goes down below the horizon, the eclipse should come in from here. But the eclipse comes in from the top sometimes. What this proves, I'm not telling you what's doing it, it proves that the Earth has nothing to do with it. Okay? And then the other thing is, when you take a sphere and cast a shadow onto another sphere, it doesn't come in with this perfect smiley face. It comes in as a long ellipse, and then it spreads out, and then it leaves as a long ellipse because it's going from a curved surface to another curved surface. So what we're seeing has nothing to do with the sun. That's for a lunar eclipse.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't know what this stuff is. A lot of stuff that goes on in the sky, but what we can scientifically prove is that it's not what they're telling us.
Well, how do we scientifically prove that it's not what they're telling us?
Because you can see they're telling us that, you know, when all three of those have to be in a line to make an eclipse happen, but we can see the sun and the moon above, and the eclipse comes in from the top of the moon. That proves that it's not the Earth doing it. If the sun and the moon were dropping down to get in alignment, this Earth would be casting a shadow down here, not up here. Okay. So we've been told, we've been brainwashed our whole lives into believing that story. You know, and then Bill Nye will go, you know, if the Earth was flat, an eclipse would look like this. You know, well, nobody believes that. Nobody believes that the Earth is.
Well, how do we explain the International Space Station rotating around the Earth every 90 minutes?
Yeah. Have you ever seen it? Have you ever seen it go by? I have.
Yes.
Yeah. So I have a tracker, and when you see it, it's bright. It's brighter than any star in the sky. It's brighter than any planet. How is it reflecting the sunlight to everyone's eye at the same time? How is it staying so bright? And how does it move as fast as they say it does? If you actually look at everything, what we're seeing is some sort of luminary, and we don't know what it is, but it's not a man-made thing. But we can prove it from the inside out that they're lying about everything on the space station. We catch them on the space station faking anti-gravity. These guys are flipping their stuff around, and way in the background, this guy floats by, and we zoomed in on him. He's hanging from a wire. He's got a harness on, right? You can see the wire, right? So why are they faking space, right? Why are they using green screens that occasionally glitch out? Okay. Why are they getting caught in their wires sometimes when they're flipping over an axis point? This guy grabbed his wire, right? We've caught them hundreds of times faking space. Why is she talking to kids? We do see them
wear tethers all the time because they don't want to bonk into things. So why wouldn't it be considered a tether?
Why is she playing with a CGI object? Okay,
for me that would be like a Wi-Fi signal is really crappy.
Yeah, I mean how many times have we glitched just watching TV nowadays? You know,
yeah.
So I can understand
here
from a point of somebody who watches a lot of TV.
Yeah.
When the signal skips.
Okay, let's look at this. So this is a 0G plane. They have it decked out to be. This is a 0G plane. Right. This was live on television in the middle of an interview on the news. All of a sudden, the astronauts slammed into the wall and they cut away. Right. What this really is these guys were all in a 0G plane, faking being in space. And so what I did is I compared 0G flight. You know what 0G plane is, right?
Yes.
So at the end of the parabolic arc, everybody falls to the ground. And I compared it to exactly what they showed us on TV, but I just turned it sideways. It's the same thing. This guy catches it was a catastrophic shift, but somehow he catches both objects that he was floating around with his left hand. He's done this a million times. Okay. They're faking everything on the space station. This guy becomes translucent. Don't tell me that's a camera thing. Watch this thing on the wall here. I'll zoom in. Watch this. You can see through him because there is no turn on a 0G plane. They have to fake it.
Well, I've seen Space Ghost, so I'm pretty certain that that's what they're doing. So
Space Ghost.
Space Ghost.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. So what got you into this flat Earth theory?
I went in kicking and screaming. I didn't like the idea of it at all. I didn't want to hear any of it because it's the dumbest thing ever. But then I was forced to try to debunk it. And only when you take the time to try to prove the globe, you realize that, none of it's real. I thought, well, what about all the photos of Earth from space? Well, they're all fake. And we made a better one than NASA made in just a couple of hours in Photoshop. NASA admits that their blue marble shot is made in Photoshop. Okay. This is us. This isn't them, but we do it better.
I also, that's kind of like in the photography world, every photo is doctored. There's just no way to not doctor it, because the moment that it leaves your camera or even processing film, you're doctoring it by making it do something.
Yeah.
So Photoshop is essentially like, no matter what, of course they have to admit it because they do run it through it.
Well, no, Robert Simmons says that he just has data and he literally painted it. He made it in Photoshop. I mean, everything, all from all the clouds, right? Here's the one. He said he made it in Photoshop. He said, well, I made this area blue because there's, this is a little greener because there's algae here. And, he painted it from data. He had no images. He literally made this in Photoshop. But, looking at the size of the United States here between these two, well, this one's bigger, but you could say, well, that's the aperture and the closeness, and this isn't really the edge of the Earth. But if we take this one and we look at it, here's something we can verify. We can drive across Mexico and go across the bay and across Baja. And we know this is 934 miles. We can scientifically prove that, right? Yeah. So they tell us the diameter of the Earth is 7,917 miles. I should be able to fit 8.5 of these in between these two lines. And 8.5 of those doesn't even fit on this page. Okay. This is a painting. This isn't a doctored photo. This is a painting. And like, if you believe this is the Earth, you have to believe that all of these other continents are on the other side of this ball.
No, I don't believe that because we know that the map that we see is not a perfect depiction.
Yeah, I mean, maps are created in whatever country decides to put that map out. That country seems to be a little bigger than the map. That's just the way it's been designed for years.
We know that the map that we usually see is technically wrong.
Yeah.
No, I got you. I don't believe in this map either, but these are the approximate relative sizes that we're told, right? And so where are all of these continents? Where are they? They're on the other side of this? That's ridiculous, right? I've already proven that this makes no sense. The Earth is either tiny or this is a painting.
Well, yeah. So basically the theory of the Earth being flat comes down to it's a disk surrounded by ice.
Not a disk.
No, it's not a disk.
It's a pond in a plane. The Earth is the basement of the universe. That's the best way I can describe it.
So we're the bottom. What's beneath us?
There could be other realms below us. The deepest hole ever dug is 7.5 miles, just short of 8 miles. And when they dug this hole, that's like getting through. Then they had an impenetrable barrier. That's like getting halfway through the skin of an apple. And they used ground penetrating radar that was wrong every step of the way. So while they were digging through the skin, their predictions were wrong. But somehow after hitting that barrier, they know it's at the center 4,000 miles farther. That's pseudoscience. This is a meme, right? We were brought up on a meme. None of this has any scientific value.
And they've already gone through the process of disproving the core, but they, because the theory of the core is from 1956.
Yeah.
And the crust and all that stuff. But you're saying 7,000 miles. I think that's
4,000 miles.
4,000 miles is to the bottom,
to the core. That's the diameter.
Okay.
The radius of the Earth. Sorry, the diameter is like 8,000 miles.
Okay. So, and they've drilled what 40,000 feet down,
just short of 8 miles.
Yeah.
40,000
in Qatar, right?
I think that's where it is. Yeah.
Okay.
It's called the Great Borehole or whatever. Something like that.
I believe so, yeah. And so what we're saying is we're not even close to the bottom of the Earth.
So we don't know. No, what I'm saying is we don't know what's below there. Whether the Earth is a ball or flat, nobody knows what's below 7.5 miles.
And nobody knows. At this point, we're waiting for 2044 to find out once we can go beyond Antarctica.
2041, but they're not going to let us go.
2041.
That's going to just what treaty? What they always just kick things down the road. So
is that the ultimate goal right now? Is to get to that point, or to prove them wrong, or to have someone like spill the beans?
We've already proven them wrong by with laser tests and microwave tests and sonar tests, mirror flashes.
But those are all man-made objects as well. How do we know those aren't manipulated to give us more false information?
You can do it yourself. You can go out and buy a P900 camera, find something that you know the distance to, that you can actually measure yourself, and then look at it and do the math. Do it yourself. I mean, these are things that we can verify ourselves. I mean, here's a plane route. This is the plane route from Santiago to Australia, right? And to go to Western Australia, it goes all the way up, all the way across to Dubai, and then down, all right? But on a flat Earth, that trip is a straight line all the way over Dubai, Australia. Straight line. Airplanes fly straight and level over an Earth plane. All NASA documents, all FAA documents say that for their simulations, when they're planning things, they treat the Earth as a flat, non-rotating plane.
Now, this is something I actually do know a little bit. Anytime Earth travel is done in the air, all time is exactly the same. And the reason being is so that they can prevent crashes and whatnot. Is that what you're referencing?
No, I'm just referencing the plane routes make no sense on a globe. They only make sense on a flat Earth. I mean, for example, there's been a bunch of emergency landings that actually prove the Earth is flat because where they land makes absolutely no sense on a ball. For example, here's a flight from Taiwan to Los Angeles, and right around here there was an emergency, a medical emergency. They had to land, so they could land in Hawaii or they can keep going over here. But instead, they went all the way to Alaska. Now, why did they go all the way to Alaska? And the reason is because this is the flat Earth map. They were here, they had an emergency, and they landed in Alaska. It's the closest spot. There's a book called 16 Emergency Landings Prove Flat Earth.
Yeah.
Every single one of them only makes sense on a flat Earth. Now, people say, well, they didn't land in Hawaii because the hospital couldn't handle it or whatever, and whatever nonsense.
Where can I watch that one?
Where can you watch it?
Yeah, the 16 emergency landing.
This is a book. You can download it for free online. Just search for it, or you can order it from lulu.com. It's a great coffee table book, great color images and explanations. It's a great book.
Okay.
16 emergency landings proving flat Earth.
Yeah.
You had like a couple questions, maybe.
I did.
Do you remember what they were?
So
you have it written down.
I do. One was the thickness of the crust. My question about global warming.
Yeah.
You had a slide earlier about how, the oil industry is causing, some of the global destruction. What happens if the so-and-so crust or barrier that is the Antarctic melts away?
I don't think it's a barrier. I think Antarctica is the highest land on Earth. It's massive. And, they always told us that if Antarctica melts, the Earth's ocean will rise by like 200 feet. Well, that makes absolutely no sense if Antarctica is just this little island at the bottom of the globe. How could it raise all the oceans are so much bigger? But if Antarctica is possibly bigger than all of the oceans and all of the continents combined, and it is 200 feet of ice on top of it, well, if it melted, yeah, the oceans would rise like almost like 200 feet. So that would be devastation. That would be complete total devastation. But I don't believe that that global warming is a thing. There is climate change, but it's not man-made. I mean, this is not the ice wall, it's the ice shoreline. There's maps of Antarctica that had no ice on it. There was a time when Antarctica was not covered in ice. Well, that would have to mean that, you know, something different was happening with the sun or a sun at the time. So, you know, there's a lot we don't know, but Antarctica goes on for quite a ways and it is off limits.
Now, you said there was something that happened back in the day where, you know, there was different type of atmosphere, and they've been able to carbon date some of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere almost 30, 40 million years ago.
Yeah.
Could that be the cause of what you're explaining? And is this ice form also affected by this carbon dioxide being produced in the atmosphere? Is this, you know, basically a carbon, because this is where they were able to just drill not that long ago and find carbon dated carbon dioxide.
The people that are telling you this are the same people that are lying to you about what Antarctica is. I don't believe in carbon dating. I don't believe that, you know, maybe it can show you something that's 100 years old, but I don't believe, you know, there's been people that found what they were told is DNA inside a dinosaur bone, and they sent it to a lab, and the lab came back, you know, with it being, you know, 10,000 years old or something. And then they told them the truth of where it came from, and the lab pulled back the results, canceled them, banned them from every lab ever again, and said they can never test anything ever again, right? Because they're making this crap up. They're making most of it up. The whole thing about testing the ice in it, the purpose, that's a good question. Let me finish my point. We've seen the National Geographics where they're doing these ice cores in Antarctica, testing the ice that we're seeing right here. That's not the ice that they really test in Antarctica. When there's National Geographic or whoever is not there filming, the ice that they're testing is coming from the outer mountains or perhaps the edge of the dome, and it's called sky ice. It's blue ice. It's super cold. They can't even take it away from Antarctica because it doesn't melt. It shrinks and disappears. And they don't know what it is. So there's a whole bunch of reports about that. So again, what is going on out there? There's a report where they drilled into the mountain, or could be the dome, and for years they had a tunneling machine going in there. And then while they were going in, the tunnel kind of closed in behind it, and they couldn't get the tunnel out. Finally, they abandoned it. And then after a couple of years, the whole thing just closed up, and their tunneling machine is lost miles inside. Could be the dome, could be ice mountain, don't know. Weird stuff going on down there, and you know, our dignitaries are going down there. John Kerry went down there on election day, 2 elections ago. That was weird. Lots of strange stuff that doesn't really
but what is the purpose of hiding this information?
So the purpose is they want us to believe that we're a random speck flying through an infinite universe where we're out of control, where an asteroid could take us out at any time, where, you know, you watch the news, you know, Kim Jong-un's going to blow us up with nuclear bombs. They just want us living in fear and to give away our God-given free will willy-nilly to the people that call themselves the controllers. When the truth of the matter is we are at the center of creation. We are powerful, spiritual people having an experience here where nobody has dominion over us. They want us living in fear, believing that there's a food shortage, that there's a water shortage, that there's an energy shortage, that we're overpopulated, when all of that is not true. They want us living in fear and giving away our power. It's literally, the way I look at it is, we have a soul, and that soul is a piece of God. It's the light of our life inside of us, and they want our souls. That's why they have the soul lure system. Sounds a little crazy, but when you really look into this, their evil is trying to take our souls. You know, people sell their souls.
So I'm gonna this part feels a little bit like it's QAnon-y.
Well,
Is there any correlation?
I take offense to that.
Okay, that's what I was curious about.
It might be a little spiritual.
It might be a little.
It might be a little spiritual.
Okay, I mean, we can understand spirituality of the situation, but you talked about how they want to control us and they're trying to hide us from food, water, and the necessities, and have this constant fear.
Those are similar things that QAnon. Is it QAnon or is it like?
I have no idea what QAnon says about any of that. But they're trying to control us. They're controlling our food. They're controlling our water. They're controlling the amount of energy we're allowed to have. They're putting carbon taxes on us, and they're telling us we're overpopulated. Where am I mistaken on any of that? That's like mainstream information.
Well, okay, so depends on what's mainstream you're going with. If you talk about overpopulation and stuff like that, you look at the last 3 decades, you could see that there's a major population in growth. You look at the food shortages. Look at agriculture and loss of water, especially like for us in California, we have a huge loss of water.
Yeah,
we're fighting fish for water.
Let me address that. So in California, you're not allowed to dig a well deeper than 300 feet because if you do, you'll hit primary water. So we're taught that our water system is evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. That is not. That's secondary water. Primary water is what this world is made of. Muammar Gaddafi, when looking for oil, tapped into primary water, which was an ocean, a massive ocean of pristine ancient water underneath the desert. And he'd built the largest aquifer project in known history. It took him 40 years. He was pumping water in giant pipes all through the desert, all across Africa, and he was giving people free organic farms, tractors, land, soil, water, seeds, and everything. And he was going to feed all of Africa. And when he finished it, the United Nations went in there and blew it up with depleted uranium bombs. Okay, they don't want us having water and free electricity because that would free us from them. They control us with electricity, with energy, right? Imagine if you didn't have to pay for energy. Life would be a little different, and we live in a place where you can go in your garage, find a jar of seeds that your grandmother, put there 75 years ago, take one out and stick it in the dirt, and then water will fall from the sky and food will grow out of the ground. There is no food shortage. There is no water shortage. There's none of this. People are just lost and they believe all of the nonsense they hear on the news. There's enough. I took a little crappy piece of land in an apartment I was renting, and I built 2 5x10 boxes, and I fed the entire neighborhood with the amount of food I grew in that. Okay. It just food every day. I come back and it'll be, wow, there's more stuff to pick. It's just growing out of the ground. That's where we live. People don't know that. People think, they got to go to the grocery store to get their food. We live in this incredible place. They don't want us to know it. They want us to think we're on a speck flying through an infinite universe and we're lost.
So I just got a question in. It says, why is all the ice and not heated like the rest of the world? So why is that Antarctic not being heated based off of like the global warming or the other carbon dioxide climate change?
Yeah, this world lives on carbon dioxide. The world is, the trees, the more carbon dioxide is, the more food that will grow. So this whole carbon dioxide thing is another myth. We work synonymous with the plants and everything. We can't go to Antarctica because we don't want to, scare the penguins with an airplane flying over it. But we can deforest the Amazon and plant palm oil trees. That's no problem. I mean, this isn't about saving the planet and making us healthy. It's all nonsense. Think about this. So if you're here, if you're in the Arctic, so you're in the Arctic, right? This is the Arctic area in here. The sun is doing what? It's arcing around you, right? Correct? It's arcing. This is called an arc, right? If I'm out here in the Antarctic, if I'm out here, what's the sun doing? It's ant-arcing away from me. They tell us, right? If
it's in the name.
It's in the name. So everything's in the name.
Are there suspected to be other suns and moons doing the same thing but over different ponds?
Good. Well, that's I call that.
I love aliens.
Yeah. So I call that puddle theory, and I'm a big fan of that. But but again, anything beyond that 60 degrees south is difficult. But what if this? What if we live in this center here? And this is where our sun is. And out here in the outer space, there's another sun and a moon. We'll call that sun Mars, and that moon Venus, which also has phases. And it circles around out here. And then there's another sun and a moon out here. We'll call that sun Saturn, and that moon Jupiter. And it's circling around out here, right? And so if you do a top-down look at that.
So based off of this, we're all on one plane?
This is all one plane.
So,
and here in the outer spaces, extra, more, terra, land, territory, extraterrestrials can come from the outer space, from the Mars system.
I would love to meet them.
Yeah, well, maybe they are. Maybe you're talking to one right now. I don't know.
Oh man,
I definitely love this. This is fun.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Goodness.
It's interesting. I'm still having that hard time. So if we have thousands of miles of ice that we can't travel across,
that's not a theory. That's a fact.
Okay. So, but then how does that go into the Mars system, Venus system, Saturn system? How do we get to those?
She's saying those are the suns and moons.
Yeah. So
what
if all of the the Mayans and the Incans that all of a sudden picked up and left? So our sun. I didn't show you how, let me show you real quick so you can understand. So our sun right now is over the equator, right? This red line is the equator. Yeah. And in a couple months, it'll be over the Tropic of Cancer. So it'll be closer to us in the inner north. And so it'll be higher in the sky because it's closer, higher in the sky, longer days, closer. And then if I move it out 6 months, to the Tropic of Capricorn, it's Australia's summer because it's higher in their sky. It's over them, and we're having our winter because it's farther away. So it oscillates in between these two tropics every 6 months. It goes in and out. What if one day the sun goes, hey, I'm going to go out here, and I'm only going to oscillate out here, okay? This entire land would freeze over. All of this ice out here would melt and flood this land, and it would freeze over. Okay. And so
would that explain the ice age?
That would explain an ice age. That would explain mud floods. It would also explain the disappearance of all of these advanced civilizations that were here. They all followed their sun, and they're living out here. So now they're out there.
No, when you say living out here, you're saying that they're living past the Antarctic.
They're living out here in these outer lands. They'd be extraterrestrials.
So the Mayans and the
maybe the Mayans
all the
and the Incas
ancient civilization.
Maybe they're out here, and then in here a new sun is born. Sound kind of biblical, right? And everybody would, that sun would be circling in here. And then we would be living in here, and we'd have no idea what's going on out here. It's a possibility.
We have no idea anyways, right?
We certainly don't. We certainly don't.
So then how do we explain the 15 degrees of change?
The 15 degrees of drift of the sun?
Yes.
So as the sun travels over us, it should go 15 degrees per hour, always evenly, and never change. And it goes about 15 degrees per hour, but it goes fastest overhead, if you ever notice. But here's a shot that I did. So I have a drone, and this only works when it's super clear, super dry, like 32 degrees out, no humidity. Mm-hmm. And so the sun was up here, and it went from here down to here in 5 minutes. And if the earth was spinning, it should just keep going. But that's not what it did. It went down, 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 and it slowed down and it stopped. And it just sat there. It just sat there. Now this is sped up 2,500%, and it just fades out. You see that? It just faded away. Watch. Mm-hmm. It sat there and it never went down. It just faded away. So here, So it didn't go down. It stopped. It faded away.
So but that could be the theory of, the light being consumed and all that stuff.
Well, the light's being consumed, but why did it stop? I don't care if it's out of focus. I don't care what size it is. It stopped and it sat there for 10 minutes. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is a sun. It just, you can clearly see that it's not going down. It's just going away. Yes, there's a lot of glare. I don't care whether, I'm not talking about the size of the sun, but the sun is clearly not going down. It's circling around its circuit. It's going away. It's going away.
Now with this, how does gravity work in this world?
Yeah, gravity is a good one. So gravity is just a theory, and so one thing before I'll answer gravity. So okay, as you can see, this thing is just going away. I got tons of these. Here's a glass dome on a white carpet, and I got a white light, and I'm just bringing the pen light across outside of the dome. And inside of the dome, you can see this little ball sun, and it goes over your head, and it's going down, and it never goes below the edge of the dome. It just stops, and it fades away, just like I showed you in that other video. So that's how we see the sun, what I call through our personal atmospheric dome. So what about gravity? So gravity is just a theory. They admit they don't know what the hell it is. They admit that they have to make up 94% dark matter and dark energy, and because it has to be there, otherwise it doesn't work. Well, that's ridiculous. The sun and the moon are the anode and cathode of the Earth battery system. The salt water carries the current, and the land is the salt bridge, and we literally live in this free energy battery system where all of this energy is coming through. The Earth has a negative charge to it, a measurable, testable negative charge. Okay. Some flat earthers say that it's just buoyancy and density that sort everything else out. We can prove that this negative charge has a slight attraction to it. It's a weak force. It attracts things to it. As you raise up off of the Earth, there's voltage in the air. At 1 meter, there's 100 volts. 2 meters, there's 200 volts. And it goes up from there. Okay. So that negative charge will attract things down, and then buoyancy and density sort everything else out. If I had a handful of, rubber balls and marbles, and I dropped them over a swimming pool, they'd all fall through the air because they're more dense. The balls would float on the top, and the marbles would go to the bottom, due to buoyancy and density. And so how can we prove that, this electromagnetic force is a real thing? And we can do experiments with electricity that will make things float or make their actual weight change. Here's a tinfoil triangle. We put a negative charge in it, and it floats. It goes up. It overwhelms the Earth, and it goes up. So does that prove?
So does this charge actually come from a sea level, or is this a ground level, or how does this charge actually?
The Earth is filled with energy. I mean, that's the fact. I mean, Tesla proved it at the World's Fairs. He powered the World's Fairs by pulling energy out of the Earth. There's free energy everywhere. This is everything. The only true forces in this world are electricity and magnetism. So
wouldn't magnetism also prove gravity?
No, magnetism is totally different from gravity. Every test that proved that mass attracts mass has never worked. There's one with the guy that I'm spacing on the name of it. He had 2 lead balls in a barn. It's so flawed that globers don't even use that anymore as proof.
Okay. Go ahead.
I have a lot of questions, but I'm not going to remember them all. Okay. What do you think triggered this movement? What was the thing that said, okay, this is starting to not make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the answer is it's actually been around for a long time. It's just we haven't had the ability until, until the internet really came around to spread it. Everyone's known the Earth is flat for a long time. In the early 1900s, everybody knew the Earth was flat. I interviewed this woman, Ruth, 102 years old, in February of 2020 about the World's Fairs, and she had such a great memory of her young childhood. I asked her what she was taught about the Earth in elementary school, and she told me they taught her the Earth was flat. So we did some research and we found newspaper articles on microfilm about teachers being persecuted in the early 1920s here in America and Europe for trying to teach heliocentrism. Okay. And we found a woman who in Croatia said that that in the 1930s, all of the schools taught the earth was flat. So the whole thing about, Aristophanes proving it, 5,000 years ago is nonsense. Every single culture before the religious cult of NASA knew the earth was flat.
So NASA's a religion. I did not know that.
Yeah, well, they're a religious cult.
That's the very first time I heard that one.
The religious cult of NASA.
That was another question I had. Is this religious based or is it non-religious based?
Well, NASA is a religious cult. It's not a religious based thing at all. I was a complete and total atheist before I understood that the world is an intelligently designed place. Now, who is the creator? What is the creator? Where did the creator come from? That's not for me to answer. I just know that this place that we live in is intelligently designed.
So I have a couple questions, and from the stream I got, what is underneath the earth? And we've kind of discussed this a little bit, like we don't really know, right?
Yeah, I showed you that. We talked about the apple, right?
Yeah, we talked about the apple, but the apple's you could see that there's a seed or some type of core. But being a flat earth, how would we know what was underneath there? Or
we don't. We don't know.
But so
you don't know what's underneath the ball earth either.
No, we don't.
Okay, I understand. So we don't know. We don't know.
All right. And then the other question is, how does a rocket go up into space with the amount of force that it needs to require to actually go into space?
Yeah, I don't believe rockets go into space. I don't believe space exists. And this is the problem. I actually had a problem with this because I understood the earth was flat before I realized space was fake and the moon landings were fake. They fool us all different ways with rockets. SpaceX, they sometimes they're launching balloons, sometimes they're launching miniatures, sometimes they launch nothing, sometimes they do a complete projection. This is a hologram, right? For lack of a better word, it is a projection. We've caught them with their projectors on the lawn, right? Where we were able to zoom in on them and see the serial numbers and look them up from the holographic company. But something went wrong on this one, and the top half of the rocket disappears. Now you can claim.
Then how do we explain like Apollo 13 or all these projects where we lost astronauts?
Yeah, did we? Do you have any proof of that? Like, if you want to look at the biggest one, which was the Challenger, right? Mm-hmm. The Challenger, that was the one that was a trauma-based mind control event where every child in school they wheeled a TV in there, and this was one to kick the can down the road, and two to traumatize children. Okay, and
that was purposely done to try to massacre
so check this out. Nobody was on that flight. It turns out that everyone that died, we found all but one of them, has an identical twin, same name, same birthday, and they all work for universities now. Okay, and they say, well, it's my identical twin. Well, how come none of those identical twins showed up at any of their funerals?
Interesting. I had not heard that before.
I haven't heard that one either. And so how do we explain like GPS or the other?
It's magnets.
Well, I understand it's magnetics, but we have satellite, some satellites out there. I know for a fact we have satellites out there.
How do you know that for a fact?
I was in the Air Force.
So did you ever see a satellite?
Yes.
No one's ever seen that. You've seen satellites not in space, though. Satellites are built.
No, you're right. I didn't travel into space.
Right.
I 100% did not travel into space.
There's no.
But I have seen a satellite.
Where? On the ground?
Yeah.
Yeah. So look.
So I know we have satellites.
Here's a satellite right here.
Them.
Here's a satellite right here. They're launching it with a balloon. NASA is the largest consumer and owner of helium companies. Okay, they have these things up. They admit there's tens of thousands of these things. They can haul 8,000 pounds into space for over a year, into upper orbit for over a year at a time.
Yeah, okay? and so can Google. Google's been doing that as well for the last couple of years.
The Google Loon program. Yeah. So there are no satellites. There are no satellites.
But yeah, SpaceX has put out 8,000 satellites in the last couple of years.
That's what they tell you. Have you ever seen them?
I mean, I've watched the launches.
You've watched the launches, and what have you watched? You watch a launch. There's 7 cuts in the first 10 seconds. It goes out over the ocean, and then they show you a cartoon. It goes over restricted ocean space, right?
Yeah. So when you go to upper orbit, what is the upper orbit in reference to? If there's no space.
What upper orbit? I don't believe anyone's gotten over. I don't know.
But you literally just said upper orbit.
He's saying no one's gone beyond that.
Yeah, but there's upper orbit. So what is that in reference to?
200,000 feet. I think that's as high as anyone's got.
Okay, but is there like a dome, or is there like a
good question?
Facility? Hit something?
So I think.
Are we hitting something?
So hold on. I think there is a dome. So NASA rockets, besides all of the video cuts from movies, they curve out and go over the ocean. This was the Go Fast rocket launched in Arizona. These guys gave us a uninterrupted film looking down, the rocket's spinning crazily. And there was another one filming sideways. I'm just showing you one view here. And all of a sudden it hit something. It literally went kerplunk, and you heard the noise. It stopped. It's floating. And then when it turns sideways, so it hit something. Is it plasma? I don't know. It wasn't solid. And I don't think it was as thick as water. But then one other thing is we saw the moon. And at the time of this launch, the moon was over New Zealand. Okay. This is in Arizona. So if it's a basketball and that thing's on the top of Arizona's on the top of a basketball, this thing at 73 miles is a fraction of a millimeter above the basketball. And the moon was below the bottom of the basketball. Okay. No way to see that on a globe. The only way that works is on a flat earth.
Okay. I can disagree with that one a little bit, because one, you can see the rocket, the jets being dismantled right there. And as it's coming out into upper atmosphere, you can kind of see where there's a rotation. And then
the rocket is rotating. The earth isn't moving.
That's what he's saying.
But
the rocket's rotating.
Yeah, the rocket's rotating. Yeah. And as it's coming out, you can see the curvature of the earth.
No, you can't. So here is the rocket right here. Yeah. And the moon is New Zealand's over here. Mm-hmm. So they can only see that way and that way. You can't see the moon over here. You can't see the moon on the other side of the other side of it. The only arguments Globers have is that that's not the moon. Well, it is the moon. We zoomed in on it. It's the moon.
But there's a curve right there.
No, this is you don't understand how lenses work. The curve goes in both ways. It's convex. It's
I know how sensors work.
Well,
and the sensor is squared. I understand how lenses work as well. I mean, we do photography.
We're photographers. It does have a curve to it.
Yeah, there's definitely a curvature. You can see into the earth right there. Now that could also, if you're saying there's a dome, that could put reference to your dome theory. But there's
do you see curvature
here?
Do you see curvature here? You do.
I do.
Okay, so let me explain to you what you're seeing. So we see.
You're going to say fisheye or
no? I'm not going to say that at all. Okay. We see in a whatever. However, the higher you are, the clearer it is, the farther you can see. It's not the distance that we can see, but there is a point where it converges, and that's the limit of our sight. Whether it's 10 miles or 500 miles, I don't care. So if it's all, if the air conditions are the same in all directions, I can see X distance that way, correct? Whatever that distance is. And if I turn this way, I can see the same distance that way, right? Make sense? Mm-hmm. So if I'm standing here, I can see the same distance in all directions. Same distance. And if I flip that over, I can see this is the limit of my horizon. And you'll tell me you see curvature. You're just seeing that I can't see this part of the yellow line because that's farther than I can see. So this is the curvature that we're seeing. And our brain is telling us, our programming is telling us it's a sphere. It's just the limit of our vision. We can only see the same distance in all directions, and that's a curve, a flat curve.
Okay, and I get that. Now, can we go back that one slide where the globe is the same as coronavirus?
It looks the same?
Cartoon virus. Okay. I wanted to see that because I saw that for a brief second and I was like, okay, I gotta bring this up.
They're programming our minds with cartoons. Cartoons are programming our minds.
Yeah.
So the virus is also not real.
I'm not saying that. I said they're programming our minds with the cartoons. There's, coronaviruses have been around forever. They've been around forever, and they've never been able to make a vaccine for them. But somehow, when the most deadly one comes around, they make a untested vaccine in record time, and everybody can't wait to get it. They're programming our minds with cartoons.
So the conspiracy is that there's actually no vaccine, or is there?
No, he's questioning it.
Okay.
Did you guys see this in the news recently?
No.
We
don't. I'll be honest. We don't watch the news.
Yeah,
Good for you. Good for you. So you're immune to corona. Then that's perfect.
Yeah.
If you don't watch the mainstream media, you can't catch it. This is the stories that they come up with. This is refraction and inferior mirage and water temperatures that make the ship float. What do you guys see here? Do you see a floating ship?
I see a floating ding dong.
No, it's a ship. It's a ship.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I have never seen it. We've never seen this.
Yeah. So all the mainstream media is going crazy, and they have these scientists on, and they're coming out with all this stuff. I see this all the time. These people don't know what they're looking at. This ship is sitting on flat water. This is just a wind line. Okay. The horizon is actually here, right? This is just calm water reflecting the nondescript sky. This is smooth water, and this is ripply water because there's a wind line here. Do you see it now? Now this is all the same line.
Okay.
That ship is not, this water here is the same as this water here. It's just, this is a wind line. You know what a wind line is? Where there's ripples on the water and then it's perfectly glass water. Mm-hmm. So this is what I call calm, glassy water, reflecting a nondescript sky. And people think it's the sky. It's not. The horizon's out here somewhere. And it's amazing what, the nonsense people will make up to explain things in a heliocentric model. Look, I'm on the space station. I'm on the space station. My budget's not $65 million a day like NASA. Okay? NASA gets $65 million a day to do this.
That looks, I mean, honestly, like, would you walk away from that kind of money though? I wouldn't.
I do often say my biggest
fear. Offered $65
$65
million a day, I'm doing it. I will be all up in space.
So okay, I'm gonna just call you Joe Rogan.
I'm not gonna walk away from $65 million. I'll definitely do it. I will.
Yeah. I hear.
Okay, that. So another question I have is a telephoto lens. Do they cause the curvature of the Earth or objects to be curved? Telephoto lenses.
It depends on what lens. Lenses do bend things. Again, that graphic I showed you with how we see in a circle. A lot of people think they're seeing curvature, but they're just seeing the limit of their vision, and it surrounds them in a circle, and they think it's curvature. So I don't really understand the question.
Was that from the comments?
Yeah, I got a text on that one. Yeah.
I don't think that I have any more questions.
So here I'll give you my wrap up here. Is the if you Google flat Earth, you're going to end up with the Flat Earth Society. You're going to end up with propaganda. You're going to end up with Byman Dan or Not Professor Dave videos or Vsauce videos. These are propaganda videos to control weak minds. There's a great video out there. One of the best introductory videos. It's called. Why am I spacing on the name? It's called 21 questions. God, I just spaced on the name. ODD reality, ODD TV. It's called I just totally having a brain fart. Whatever. The name of the video, if you search for it, it won't come up. It won't come up. You search it by name, A Stranger's Guide to Flat Earth, 21 questions. Okay. And basically it gives you the top 21 questions, and it has the short answers for you. But if you search it for it, it won't come up. You'll get all propaganda. You get, these paid shills feeding you nonsense. So the app, which is $3, okay, I'm not here just to sell apps. I'm here to give you a way to save a ton of time. And the app will feed you all of the information that you need to look into this farther. And I have an offer for all of your listeners and yourselves. I'm offering a Bitcoin for one proof of the globe, just one. And but before you do it, you have to watch the featured video every day for 2 weeks, and you know. And then if you think you still have, this is the featured video here, there's a different one every day.
Okay.
Watch it with breakfast. And if you think you have a proof of the globe, send it to me. But before you do, you hit the question mark and up come the top 21 questions. Well, hey, what about eclipses? What about ships over the horizon? Like if I hit ships over the horizon, up comes a playlist that YouTube will not feed you, right? This is stuff that will show you, stuff you can go verify yourself. Unlike anything that NASA gives us.
Okay. So
it does a ton of stuff like that.
All on the clock.
It's all in the app. You have to have Android 8.0 or higher, or an iPhone 6 or better. And if you're unsure about spending the $2.99, just read the reviews. It's the highest rated app in the App Store, and everybody loves it.
All right. And you said a Bitcoin to anybody that can be able to prove after 2 weeks of watching the feature.
One proof of the globe, yes.
What's that Bitcoin going for? 33,000, something like that
60,
right now?
60,000.
Oh, even better. Yeah. So that's just shy of my $65 million a day. I'll still take it.
So take the challenge. It's a lot of fun, and just read the reviews. Don't even buy the app. Just read the reviews. My YouTube channel is DITRH, the initials for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole. I have nice short 5 minute short videos. Most of them under 5 minutes. And my website, my Instagram, my Facebook is all The Flat Earth Podcast, and my podcast, The Flat Earth Podcast. So check that out. All that stuff is free.
And you have Twitter or anything like that?
The Twitter is the FE Podcast. The FE Podcast.
Okay.
Everything else is the Flat Earth Podcast.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you. Thank you.
That was a lot of information. I'm definitely going to go deep dive.
It is a lot to take in, and you'll have a lot of questions. But again, if you go into the app and click that question mark button, guaranteed your question's answered in there, and it's answered more ways than one. And people say, well, what do you watch, a YouTube video? That's where you get your information? No, YouTube is just a platform where people can save you a lot of time. Like if you want to, how real is that Antarctic treaty? You could spend a year trying to figure it out. Well, we already did that for you. We had a team of people, lawyer working on this, and he summed it up in a 32-minute video called "Sorry, Antarctica is Closed." Watch that video and you'll be like, all right, well, I now understand why the exploration of Antarctica isn't an option.
Cool.
Very interesting. Sweet.
Dave and Jess, thanks.
Thanks you very much, Dave.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys, enjoy. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye.